Welcome back to the Portal Report Head Coach Showcase. I'm Riley Frayne, and this afternoon I'm joined by head coach of Dartmouth's men's basketball program, David McLaughlin. Coach, thank you so much for speaking with me today. How are you doing, and how's everything going so far this offseason?
It's going great, Riley. I appreciate you having me on, and right in the middle of recruiting right now, in the heat of July, and was just in Vegas this weekend. It was 117 there on Sunday, so but we were in cold gyms all day. So when you're recruiting, it doesn't matter the heat outside; you're inside the entire time.
Well, certainly a lot different than the weather you guys tend to get up in New Hampshire, I bet.
Little different, little different. I'll take it here any day of the year.
So, I think first thing I kind of wanted to touch on with you, Coach, is just to kind of take a look and reflect on last season. Obviously, it maybe didn't quite go the way you guys had planned, but you put together some really strong performances in, a very competitive year for the Ivy League. I think the split series with an NCAA tournament team in Princeton comes to mind, win over preseason favorites Yale, as well as you guys beat Harvard twice, who additionally received some first place votes. So for you, Coach, what were some of the highlights of last season, and what do you think you're going to look to build on heading into the 2023-24 season here?
Yeah, I think we had a competitive year last year, being one game out of the top four, which is, really now an immediate goal for us is to get in the top four, and to have a couple overtime losses in league play, that kind of prevents you from doing that. It is what it is. I think last year we were a team that was searching for our identity pretty early and often throughout the season, and I think we did that because we had a relatively young and inexperienced team. We were, I think, 359th in the country in experience minutes last year, and it took us a little while to gain a level of consistency and identity. And I think once we did that, we were able to, really make some significant strides. I think heading into this year, where now you're returning, 3 or 4 starters, you're returning 7 of 9. That gives you at least a base to know what you have. Where the previous year, I think we have this. Now you have some data. We ended up playing a lot of young men. We played a lot of guys last year because of that inexperience and trying to figure things out. So I think part of the preseason will be, really start not narrowing down a rotation, but making an environment that's competitive enough every day that we're seeing guys in uncomfortable situations and seeing who's ready to compete for those minutes when the time comes. So I'm excited for that, excited to get them back. And that preseason, that September period is a way of kind of building that identity, that competitive edge, and at the same time, really continuing to develop our guys.
So you kind of touched on a little bit of it there. Fortunately, not a lot of roster offseason turnover for you and the staff, Coach, but you did lose a few key contributors to the transfer portal, really as every program does nowadays. Specifically, someone coming to mind is, second team all-conference selection, Dame Adelokun, who entered the transfer portal back in March. A 3-year player for you, Coach, somebody who was a big part of Dartmouth basketball over the past couple seasons. So I wanted to ask, what was Dame's impact on the program like? And, how was it like getting to work with and coach, a player of his caliber?
Yeah, and Dame's awesome. And for Dame and Cam, they're leaving because their eligibility is exhausted here, right? So they're graduate transfers. So, I think they had no other option but that. But for Dame, I just mentioned being a developmental program, and Dame kind of defined that. Came in with not an extensive amount of recruitment out of high school, but was very goal oriented at the time. I really wanted, thinking of his words, I want to be a great player. I want to do this. I want to become this, and wasn't ready to transition to college basketball as a first year player, which some players are just not. And that is for a bunch of reasons. Either you're physically not there, some skill sets not there. Maybe you're behind someone who plays a lot of minutes, whatever it might be. He just wasn't there. And then COVID hit, right? So now you're kind of developing on your own. And to his credit, he really stuck to it. And during his junior year, wasn't in the rotation early in the year, and by the end of the year was starting. And then the productivity at the end of the year dictated that he was going to have a really productive senior year. And, he did. And all league player and all league person, and just a terrific teammate, and wish him nothing but the best during his transition. And you don't fill voids like that right away. You don't just fill in, hey, he's an all league player, we'll fill in another one. I mean, some teams can do that sometimes, but that's not the case here. We're just going to have our young guys who got meaningful minutes last year, and Brandon Mitchell Day and Jackson Monroe, and they're going to have to transition, take that next step.
So again, another great segue into my next question, Coach. You kind of touched on some of the, the issues in terms of eligibility that the COVID-19 pandemic posed. Specifically with the Ivy League and some of the players losing that year of eligibility for those who were in college at the time. And so, I know during your time at Dartmouth, Coach, you guys haven't been the biggest users of the transfer portal. From what I understand, it's very difficult to recruit transfers to the Ivy League portal. Whether it be for grades or credits, or more recently those eligibility reasons. But here at the Portal Report, we're always looking to talk about transfer portal. So, Coach, I thought you would be the perfect candidate to kind of ask about some of those challenges of recruiting, from the transfer portal to an Ivy League school, as well as with that COVID-19 pandemic and the canceled 2020-21 Ivy League season, how that extra year of eligibility has really influenced players, within your conference.
Yeah, I'd say that extra year, it's always about how people are developing during that year, right? Meaning when COVID actually happened. And then I think when you look at that extra year, it's allowing at least people in our league, at a certain time when you run out of eligibility, you can't be a grad student in the Ivy League. They had a 1-year waiver where you were allowed to do that, and now you no longer can do that. So it does open up graduate school opportunities for many student athletes, which I think is great, to be able to get another degree beyond an Ivy League degree and continue to play a sport they love and are passionate about. I think that's just fantastic. Can't speak for the league in general, but for us, Dartmouth is a college, right? And so we're a very undergraduate focused, a smaller institution that way, with still 5,000 students, but not a lot of people leave here once they come, not just basketball players, but all students. So it's an incredibly hard place to transfer into just based on those numbers alone. So it's not necessarily part of our recruiting philosophy to say we're going to recruit an incoming class and we're going to make sure we have a room for transfer. That's just not part of what we're doing here structurally. It has impacted our league transfers, and it will continue to impact our league, but just not at the rate it impacts other leagues. A team might say, oh, we have one, maybe max 2 new players, where other leagues might say we have 11 new players on a team, which is just mind-boggling to me, but the way it is. So I think for us, and again, more Dartmouth specific, when we recruit young men, we can say, based on what's happened here and what we see is going to happen, the young men you come in with your class are going to be the guys that you're graduating with. The teammates you have are going to be your teammates. So instead of having 8 or 9, 10 new teammates a year, you're going to be part of this program that's continuing to build and develop. So because we're not in the portal that much, we really try to hang our hat on that consistency piece.
Yeah, so I think, being in such a unique situation with the Ivy League where, you kind of pointed it out there, the guys you're coming in with as a freshman are really the guys you're going to graduate with, 4 years later. But, in this era of the transfer of college basketball, Coach, where we're seeing literally, hundreds of players enter the transfer portal each offseason and so much roster turnover often from year to year, I thought you would be, the ideal candidate to kind of ask about locker room culture here. So, how do you and the staff kind of go about finding and recruiting players, that are in it for the long haul at Dartmouth and want to work to, continue building that program with you guys?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think part of it is the product that we have to sell, right? This is a life-changing opportunity. It's not just a great level of basketball, but it's an elite world-class education. So now you can play at a league that's a top 12 league in the country, get an elite education. And if you want to continue to play, great. We want guys that want to continue to play. But when that ball stops bouncing, a place like Dartmouth is going to open up doors and opportunities that, frankly, a lot of places just aren't going to be able to do for you. So I think when we're recruiting, it's finding guys that want that balance, right? That want that education, yet still play at a really high level of Division I basketball. And we want guys that are relationship based, that value relationships. So I'm not saying I'm going to be a true mentor to everybody that comes in here, but I'm going to work to do that. And our staff is going to work to do that. And I feel that young men that are relationship based are going to allow you to coach them hard and are going to allow you to put them in uncomfortable situations and are going to respond because they want that. And I think a big part of the portal is people not being comfortable in uncomfortable situations, right? And then they're just like, well, this isn't for me. just the opposite here. We're going to push you, and we're going to put you in uncomfortable situations, because that's where growth comes, right? That uncomfortability is what really fuels that is a fertilizer for that soil for growth. For us, I really try and hang our hat on how we're developing guys through different situations.
All right. So before we wrap things up here, Coach, we always like to kind of end off by, giving you guys the floor. So Coach McLaughlin, we touched on a lot of different aspects of Dartmouth basketball, from your success and development, during your tenure, kind of the challenges posed by the modern transfer portal, as well as recruiting to, an Ivy League program, and even a lot more. But, as you're looking to continue to grow and lead this program ahead of next season, we want to know, what's your message to the Dartmouth student fans and alumni to kind of get them excited, for another season of Big Green basketball here?
Yeah, it's a great question. We have a great product. I think our guys work their tails off. They're great in the community. They're great leaders. We have a staff that's very involved within our department and in the Dartmouth community as well. And the support is awesome. And we need to continue to have the support of not just the Dartmouth community, but the Hanover community and the Upper Valley community. And it's one and the same. Dartmouth is the Upper Valley. It is Hanover. They're all the same. And we want to continue with that through our basketball program.
All right. Thank you very much, Coach David McLaughlin. Coach, we appreciate the time. Thanks again for joining us.
Thank you. Anytime.
All right.